to Straight Up Paleo, where we talk all things nutrition straight up. I'm one of your hosts, Christina Rice. I'm a holistic health coach and a nutritional therapy practitioner in training currently living in Los Angeles. I'm also the creator of the health and wellness blog addictedtolovely.com and the host of the Actually Adultish podcast.
And I'm your other host, Halderman. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner from Dallas, Texas, creator of careaboutit.com, and co-host of the Low Carb Conversations podcast. In this podcast, we will be discussing all things paleo, health, and nutrition, along with answering questions straight from you.
If you want to submit a question for us to answer on the podcast, head to straightuppaleo.com or email us at straightuppaleo@gmail.com.
Remember our disclaimer. The materials in this podcast are only to be used for advice and are not to be used in place of general medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
If you want to support the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a rating and a review on iTunes. Enjoy the show. Hey, Kara, what's up?
What up? What up? I'm just chilling at the house, hanging.
Yeah? Doing anything crazy over there?
No, I just ate, I don't know why I always think about food like all the time, but I was like, I just ate the best curry bowl ever for lunch.
I want you to make me that.
Oh my gosh. I seriously just made like restaurant quality curry bowl a couple days ago, and I just ate the last of my leftovers. It was so good. I might even like post the recipe for it on Instagram because it was that awesome.
Please do, because it looked so good. And when you made me curry when I visited you in Texas, that was the best meal ever.
It was.
We had pork belly over green
so
curry.
Good. I know, Woo! And it was onion and garlic free.
Yeah,
for you.
Amazing. I'm obsessed. Cool.
What have you been doing?
I'm just getting ready because the Good Fest is this weekend, which is this big wellness festival, and everybody's coming into town, and I am really excited to see everybody because, none of my friends live here, but I get very overwhelmed with events and so many people and so many things. So I'm trying to squeeze in my whole week's worth of work into 2 days, which is stressful for me because you know how I am.
Yeah. Slight perfectionist personality and wanting to get everything done right now.
Yeah, and it's so hot here out of nowhere, so I'm irritated. But my Paleo Women Lifestyle program started yesterday, and already so much fun. The girls are so great, and I'm just excited for it to roll out. That's pretty much all to do with me. Yeah, no, it's so fun. I love getting to know everybody in the Facebook group. Facebook groups are popping, like our Straight Up Paleo Pals group.
Oh yeah, that group is awesome. We have had so much like conversation going on in there, and so many people asking questions and meeting people, and that's kind of why we created the group Straight Up Paleo Pals, so you guys could meet like-minded women and men. There are some men in there, not just all women.
We want more men too.
I know. If you're a man listening to this podcast, please join the Straight Up Paleo Facebook group. But
how awesome would it be if two people met via our Facebook group and fell in love and got married?
Oh my God, I would cry. I was just thinking the other day that, is there like a paleo dating site?
We were talking about that.
Yeah.
I don't know of one, but I could use it because
if it doesn't exist, I may just create the app myself.
Yeah.
And I mean, not that I need it, but it seems like a good
I need it.
economic investment as well.
I need it. But if you guys aren't already in that group, please join. Just look up Straight Up Paleo Pals and request to join, and we will add you, and it'll be a party. But we also want to remind you, if there's a question or topic you want us to talk about on the podcast, you want us to see and us to answer, make sure you submit that to straightuppaleo@gmail.com, or you can submit it on our website at straightuppaleo.com under our contact form. And that's how we can keep all of the questions and topics in one place, and we'll read through them all and use those for our Q&A episodes.
Yep, and we're still doing our ARTISANA giveaway, right? It's still going. I'm super pumped about it. I've been eating so much cashew butter recently from ARTISANA. I'm obsessed with it. We're doing a giveaway, and I think we'll have it going for a couple more weeks here, and we're picking 3 winners, and 3 winners are going to get 2 full-size jars of whatever ARTISANA nut butter you want. ARTISANA nut butters are literally the best because they're like all raw, all organic, and they're super creamy and amazing. All you have to do to enter is go leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts and then screenshot that in to our email, straightuppaleo@gmail.com. Or if you've already done that, then go on your Instagram and share our podcast either on like your post or your stories and screenshot that and just send that into our email as well, and you'll be entered.
Yes, those nut butters are just so divine. Do you have a favorite?
It's so hard. I really am into cashew butter right now, and
I know
my dad is like, my dad listens to this, by the way. My dad is making me feel bad about my cashew consumption because he's worried about lectins.
Of course.
Yes, and of course he's worried about lectins right now. He's into that whole game. But every time I eat this cashew butter, I'm like, how many lectins are in this? But I don't care because I feel fine.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
I just think that coconut butter and cashew butter are literally frosting. You know how,
No.
I mean, I think about what
butter. Pecan butter is amazing.
It's just like almond butter nowadays. I only use almond butter pretty much when I'm baking because I don't care about getting rid of it. You know?
Yeah.
Is that bad?
No, I'm the same exact way. Almond butter has become like the new peanut butter.
Yeah, it's kind of just, it's still, but this is what's crazy is the ARTISANA almond butter is just so much better.
Oh, it is.
Than any other almond butter. It's insane. So, yeah, I don't know. I love them all. It's really hard, but I don't know what I was doing before I found cashew butter because there was a long time where I had never had cashew butter, and now I can't imagine my life without it.
It's low key, like it's expensive, but worth it.
It's so good. It's a precious commodity. That on top of some 100% dark chalk.
I've been doing that for like a week. If y'all are wondering, good. I broke my Whole30 early. If you saw my Instagram post,
worth it.
It was worth it. Like okay. So this is something that's really been on my mind lately. Like I really appreciate like 30-day cleanses and resets and all of that because they can help people really become in tune and in touch with their body. But if you've been in this space for a while and experimenting with this stuff, then you kind of already understand your body a little bit more. And towards the end of my Whole30, for literally like 8 days straight, I was thinking about like a square of dark chocolate or just something with like maple syrup in it. And it wasn't even like that I was craving it. I just wanted to eat it, but I couldn't. And it made me feel like crap about myself. And I was like, okay, this is stupid. Like, why am I beating myself up over just wanting to have like this raw vegan cheesecake, which is what I ate when I broke my Whole30. And I was like, no, this is dumb. Like, I'm not going to let this program basically tell me what my intuition is saying is wrong. So I was like, F it, I'm done. And I just ate the cheesecake and I feel so much better about my life. And it was fine.
Yeah. I mean, it did what it needed to do. It got you way more in touch with your hunger, your sugar cravings, all of that. So I don't see any reason why it was bad. Also, is it just me? So I never liked cheesecake, but raw vegan cheesecakes are so good. But I never liked regular cheesecake.
Really? Oh, man.
Yeah. I never used to like that.
Is the best.
I never liked that, but I love raw vegan. I love all raw vegan desserts. Same. I just think they're so good. But the other thing I want to talk about, okay, so I am, speaking of sort of like resensitizing your body and getting back in tune with your body's signals. So my sleep game has been so strong for a solid 3 weeks.
How come?
Because of my Somnifix.
Yes, I know. Me too.
To tell you, I'm off my game. Like, I feel like a pile of poo today because my sleep was so bad last night. And last night I didn't put my mouth tape on.
You didn't?
Yeah, I didn't, because I had a really bad night and I just passed out and I didn't even think about it. And it was just and I woke up 4 times throughout the night. I feel so tired. And that just shows to me, because I haven't gone a night without my mouth tape for like 3 weeks. And that's the only, like last night I didn't have it and I feel horrible. And now I just realized I just can't live without it.
I'm in the same boat. I'm literally in the same boat. I can't live without it. Somnifix is one of our podcast sponsors, and we're just pumped to be partnered with them because they're the like world's first hypoallergenic mouth tape. And if you guys haven't seen us like post about it, talk about it all the time, we're basically obsessed because like Christina was saying, like when you tape your mouth at night, you're only allowing air to go through your nose for the most part. The tape does have a tiny little vent, so you can breathe a little bit through your mouth and you don't feel like you're suffocating, basically. But you can breathe the majority through your nose, and it puts you in a more parasympathetic, relaxed state, and you will get a way better night's sleep once your body gets used to having the tape over the mouth. You'll get like a way more deeper, more restful night's sleep. And that's what we've both been experiencing. And now, like when I sleep without the mouth tape, something is off.
Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah, no, my friend came over for dinner the other night and I sent her home with a bunch because she was telling me how she was so curious about them and she wanted to see if it would help her boyfriend sleep. And I was like, yeah, take them and you will never go back.
Yeah.
So
and I've been getting a lot of questions recently ever since we announced the previous week that we were being sponsored by them about some people have gotten them and they're like, I'm freaking out because I'm ripping it off in the middle of the night. And I'm like, yeah, guys, this happens for a week because I don't know. It's just something you have to get used to for like a week or so. And then once you get over that hump, like you're hooked and your sleep is dialed in and amazing. So just stick it out and I promise you will be obsessed like us.
Yeah, let your body get used to it. But I mean, this is real deal. I just think I can't even wrap my head around how simple the fix can be, for getting better night's sleep. Because I know that sleep is one of the number one things that people struggle with, sleeping through the night and feeling rested. And I think that everybody should get this in their lives. If you struggle with sleep, you might as well just make sure it's not just because you're mouth breathing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's such an easy fix. Why wouldn't you just test that out?
It's a really simple hack. And I know we talk about here like long-term things that you can do that maybe you won't see like results right away. But with mouth taping, it is a more simple fix to getting a restful night's sleep, and it's not something you have to be like working on for months and months and months. You could literally just be breathing through your mouth. And Mike Meltzel was talking about how like it makes the tongue like collapse on itself a little bit in the back of your throat, and that's what he's kind of saying is leading to like sleep apnea, or that's like the first sign of sleep apnea. And you're definitely not getting a good night's sleep when that is happening. So you can just fix it by closing your mouth, taping it, and breathing through your nose. And I'm going to rave about this forever, but Corey, my boyfriend, like doesn't snore anymore whatsoever when he wears the mouth tape. So we can finally hang out together at night because I just cannot stand snoring.
You guys, this is a good idea. If your boyfriend or husband or significant other snores, just let them go to sleep. And then while they're sleeping, just tape their mouth. They won't even notice. They
may not, but they may wake up screaming at you in the middle of the night. Wondering what the heck is on their face.
I think it's a good idea. This is the thing though. Also, so you have to realize you're not just, okay, I honestly wouldn't do this if I wasn't using the Somnifix because I'm afraid, even though I know I don't need to be afraid, I'm afraid of just using regular tape because I like that the Somnifix has that vent that you can breathe in and also that it doesn't hurt when you take it off.
Oh, yeah.
It's designed with that special adhesive, like it's made for your lips. So it doesn't hurt at all when you rip things off because that's my biggest fear. That's why I hate using Band-Aids. I never use Band-Aids because they hurt so bad to take off.
Yeah, it doesn't even hurt to take off at all.
Yeah.
It feels really good. But okay, I have to tell you. So lately, I guess I've been drooling in my sleep or something. Like, I don't know what's going on. But I've been wearing the mouth tape and literally like there's been like
stops you.
drool in my mouth, like
Oh, really?
in the mouth tape. Yeah.
Hey, that's a nice catch.
Yeah, it's a good catch, but it's really weird, and it makes me wonder like what is going on when I am dreaming. Oh my gosh. But seriously, I've been having the most, sorry, I just remembered this, but I've been having the most vivid dreams also
Yeah.
since wearing this stuff. And I know I was talking to Nicholas about it, and like when you go into deeper REM sleep, I guess you're more susceptible to remember your dreams, or I don't really know the whole science behind it. I like to talk to him some more about it, but he definitely says that a lot of the people who wear it consistently remember their dreams more. And it's weird because I used to never ever remember my dreams when I woke up.
Yeah, it's because you weren't getting in a deep enough state of REM. Dreams are very interesting.
Yeah.
I took a whole class on dreams when I was in college. Yeah, I love dreams. And I used to, in high school, this is so random. In high school, I was super into dreams and analyzing dreams. And my friends would come to me and tell me their dreams, and then I would psychoanalyze them. I'm so weird.
Dude, no, that's cool. I love dream analyzation. Maybe one day I should just write down my dream, and then as a podcast episode, like you can just psychoanalyze it for me. You should. Well, I got into it because I, growing up, always had really, really intense, vivid dreams. And I would always write them down and talk about them. And I was fascinated by them. And I understood the patterns behind my dreams and all this stuff. I was really into it. And then when I hit sort of end of high school, in college, I stopped remembering my dreams. And that's why I also am loving this, because I have been remembering my vivid dreams every night. And I feel like I'm back to my roots, my dream loving self. Like, it's very interesting. Yeah. So I think it's awesome. I love, cool. I don't know. It's cool. I think our dreams can tell us a lot. I'm a very big believer in the subconscious. So, but that's a whole other issue. Yeah. But if you want to jump on the Somnifix train with us and start just improving your sleep from the get-go and stop being a mouth breather, then you can go to their website or Amazon. Our coupon code SUPSLEEP does work on Amazon as well, and their website. So enter SUPSLEEP either on Amazon or somnifix.com, and you can get 10% off of your mouth tape. And also, if you use it, like, please tag us on social media, because we want to see. We want to see. Yeah. Well, so their website links out to Amazon, and it's Amazon Prime, so you guys can get a better night's sleep in 2 days. Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Sup Sleep, use it. It's amazing. But I'm obsessed with that product, and I'm never going without it. I need a lifetime supply.
Either. Okay, guys. So today's show, we have an interview with Diana Rodgers, and Diana is a nutritional therapy practitioner along with being a registered dietitian, and she runs the blog Sustainable Dish and also the podcast Sustainable Dish. We dug really into like her lifestyle, what it was like for her growing up, like everything from being an NTP to an RD. And then we also talked a lot about her new documentary that she's going to be producing called Kale versus Cow. And we wanted to talk with her about that because Christina and I both get questions from a lot of y'all, and we just see this out there in the health space and in, the normal world, that we should be limiting our red meat consumption. And we kind of wanted to have her on to clear that up and talk more about her documentary, because her documentary really is about highlighting how eating meat is good for us ethically, environmentally, and nutritionally. So I think it was a good conversation.
I think it was a great conversation. I think that so many people are going to learn a lot from this, and I'm so excited for this new documentary. I think it's the perfect answer to what the health.
Yeah, and she said it's not even going to be like what the health. Like, what the health was very like in your face.
It was like classic propaganda.
It really what it was. And I'm still mad about it. I won't even get into it, but I'm still mad.
Yeah.
I'm bitter.
Yeah.
But her documentary sounds like it's going to be great. You can even find like a little mini, I don't know if it was a trailer, but it's like a blurb of her talking about it on her website, Sustainable Dish, and you can contribute to it as well on her website. So she's a really cool gal to talk to and has a really interesting past, and has really interesting life in general with what she's doing right now. So I know you guys are going to enjoy this conversation, but I think without further ado, should we just cut over to the interview?
Yeah, let's hop right in.
Welcome to the show, Diana. How's it going?
It's awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, I'm really, really excited to be chatting with you today. We want to talk a little bit more about your documentary, Kale versus Cow, do you know when it's going to come out?
Well, there's a lot of variables on there. Yeah. We're hoping for 2019. Films take a while. Gathering up the financing takes a while. So we're doing pretty good with our Kickstarter, but our crowdfunding campaign, I should say. It'll all, the more money we raise, the faster it'll get done, basically.
Of course. Yeah. You never know with those sorts of things. But before we even dive into the documentary and talking about what it's about, I definitely want our listeners to know more about you. And Christina and I don't even know a whole lot about you as well. So we're just super interested to hear about like your background and where you came from.
Sure.
So if you want to dive into that, go for it.
Yeah. So I grew up in an ocean town, Eastern Long Island, and my summer job was all through high school and college was working on a farm. That was I worked at this roadside farm at this farm stand, and I would help harvest things. Although my boss would get so upset when we would harvest melons because I'd drop them all the time. Like you toss the melons, and I'm like, not that coordinated. And he'd every time I dropped a melon, that was $5. So
did you have to pay him $5?
No, but he quickly realized that my skills were a little bit better at the farm stand than, working in the fields with the melons. So, but I got to do other farm stuff. I got to harvest herb, things that were a little bit less requiring of athletic coordination. And I guess the next step, I have such a convoluted kind of weird trajectory, but I was an art major in college. And so I have a degree in art education. I was a furniture maker for a while. And then it was time to get real jobs. And so my husband, who at the time was my boyfriend, I met him in college. We moved out to the West Coast and had to pay rent and needed to get some jobs. And so I got a job at an advertising agency just because I didn't know what else to do with my art degree. And my husband got a job at a market research company. He had an English degree. And so we were both kind of in this high-tech world right at the dot-com boom. And he in particular was miserable, absolutely miserable, working in an office. He loves being outside. And so every weekend we would kind of take off, get outside of the city and go visit, the country, go for bike rides or whatever. And we started learning more about this new way of farming called CSAs. And that was there weren't many at the time. And it really appealed to my husband because he was a strong environmentalist, just didn't know how to have a career doing that. Loves the idea of working outside. He had read a book by this guy, Wendell Berry, called The Unsettling of America, Culture and Agriculture. And that sealed the deal for him. And actually, there was a really great documentary about Wendell Berry that came out not too long ago called Look and See, which is so, so good. Really great. And the funny thing about that documentary is he refused to be in it. So the filmmaker was super creative because you don't even really realize that he's not in it because you can hear his voice and they just kind of overlay with images and other interviews and everything. Anyway, highly recommend that documentary if folks are into documentaries. So we moved back to Massachusetts. He got a master's in soil science, and then we moved to a farm, and it was really great. I also kind of changed my job a little bit and got really into food and started working for Whole Foods Market. And then when we had our second child, it just didn't make sense for me to have a corporate job off the farm with 2 kids in daycare. It just was like not really working. But I also, not working was not working for me as well. And so I ended up working at the farm. And so we had a farm stand kitchen, a retail store where we sold all kinds of, not only our product, but local foods. We rendered our own lard. We ran a raw milk co-op, which at the time I didn't really know much about, but we sort of just hosted it because they needed a place to pick up their milk. And I started learning more about why fat was good, why butter was good. And I just started diving more and more into nutrition. I started getting questions from our customers like, why are you selling coconut oil? That's a saturated fat and that's going to kill you. And I didn't really know how to answer that question very well. And so I first attended Nutritional Therapy Association just to sort of figure it out for my own self. Not really sure if I was going to make a career out of it. But then I quickly realized I loved counseling people. I loved nutrition. And I wanted to work more closely with the medical community. So I went back to school for my RD, registered dietitian. So, and that all came kind of after a lifelong battle with celiac disease and blood sugar regulation issues and finding the paleo diet, which totally fixed me. And so fast forward to today, I have a nutrition practice where I can take insurance. I'm a licensed registered dietitian in the state of Massachusetts. So I have an office in Concord, Mass, and I do local and distance health coaching, and I can do medical nutrition therapy face-to-face. And then with the rest of my time, I am really interested in that intersection between what's the most sustainable foods to grow and what are the most nutrient-dense foods for humans. And so that's really where I've been focusing my energy for the last several years, and specifically in the area of meat, because I feel that it's been just so wrongly vilified as unhealthy, unsustainable, and, ethically bad to eat, an animal if we can get everything we need from plants and everything. And so I've really been looking at those issues specifically lately.
Wow. Okay. There's so much to dive in there. You have such an interesting background. So there's so much to go off of. One thing I'm curious about is, so you did the NTA before you became an RD. So what was it like going into the RD program with this sort of Weston A. Price aligned mindset? Because it's very different curriculum.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I do these Ask Me Anything calls, and a lot of times it's people that are either becoming an RD or interested in becoming a nutritionist. And so I just had a call with a young woman who's 22 and asked me that same exact question. She's about to enter an RD program and she knows better. And so she was asking me like how to deal right during the program. Mm-hmm. So about half the classes are just straight science, which is, there's not much to contest there, right? Like biochemistry is pretty straightforward biochemistry. And it was good to have that deeper dive into science for someone who was an art major undergrad. So the other classes, it was definitely a challenge for me to, keep my mouth closed. I'm sitting in the front row and, I would just, every semester I would start out telling myself, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to answer the questions and I'm just not going to get like emotionally involved in this class.
That was literally like halfway me through in school. Like it was so hard.
And so that would never last. And I would always end up just flipping out, halfway through the class and sending my professor lots of papers and in a nice way, in a controlled way. But the nice thing is they kind of understood where I was coming from mostly. And so, even though it still is, low fat, high carb, everything in moderation in general, there were glimmers of hope in there a little bit. And then, the hardest part for me was the internship when I had to work in hospitals and my only tool for these people that were dying was Boost and this horrible cafeteria food. And, the lowest carb thing I could send up was 250 grams for people with diabetes.
Wow.
So that was really rough. And so it was definitely dark those days. And I was just so thrilled when I finished and just got out of there. And I really hope I don't have to go into a hospital again for a really long time, because I'm just so motivated to help prevent people getting to that place.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what was your motivation to push through all of that dark times of not really being able to help people? Most people, myself included, that was too tough of a situation for me and I couldn't do it. And they would leave the situation. So how did you stay motivated like that?
Well, so in order to, the NTA program is awesome, but legally, even in Massachusetts, which is a very, very liberal, a green state, you have to be an RD in order to practice medical nutrition therapy. So meaning, anyone can just kind of give weight loss advice and healthy eating advice in Massachusetts as a one-on-one, which happens to be less than half the country as far as the rules go. So a lot of states, you can't even do that unless you're an RD. But in Massachusetts, you can. But I was just finding that so many people were coming to me that were sick. They had celiac disease, and I couldn't even legally tell them eat a gluten-free diet because that's medical nutrition therapy. You have to be an RD to say that. And so that was one thing, is everyone was sick. And secondly, I do a lot of writing and a lot of speaking, and I wanted that medical credential just to work more closely. I have GI doctors that send their people to me. I can take insurance, which really widens the scope of people that can come to me, because, why would you go pay cash to see somebody when you can have a $30 copay, right? And talk to somebody about nutrition. And so I can see people now, and, insurance pays me pretty good. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't cost the client anything. And so just for all of those reasons, it just made a lot of sense for me, for my situation, to just go forward with that RD.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. But so you did that, you did the NTA and you became an RD, and you mentioned that you really got into health kind of when you were working at this co-op and you didn't really know much about coconut oil, and people would ask you all the health benefits. But with your own personal health journey, you said you had a long time battle with celiac disease. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? How did you know you had celiac disease? So
I was sick my whole childhood, in the hospital a lot for dehydration. I couldn't keep anything in me. I would it wasn't pretty. And I was very, very underweight, low muscle tone, all through my childhood. And then, and my doctor, the pediatrician at the time just told my mom, oh, she's lactose intolerant. Just don't, give her soy milk. So I actually had a crappy processed food diet plus soy milk, as my childhood diet. And it wasn't until I had a new job. I was working for National Public Radio, and I had a new health insurance policy, and I decided to go get a physical to meet this new doctor. And I was 26. And so I went to her, and she spent a long time with me, more than any other doctor had. She was right out of school, and she was just very interested in talking to me, which I thought was bizarre, right? You're not used to that. And she started asking me about my digestion, and I said, I don't know. I think I just have stress or IBS or something. I don't know what it is. I never feel good. And so she ran the blood screener for it, and it came back positive. And then I went and had the endoscopy. And when that came back positive, I couldn't believe it. So I had never heard of celiac before. I was eating wheat 3-4 times a day. In fact, that week that I got diagnosed, I was taking a vegetarian cooking class and had discovered wheat gluten, the seitan, and thought it was the best thing I'd ever eaten. And I was eating it like crazy that whole week, because I was oh my gosh, this is so delicious, because it's yummy. I probably find it disgusting now, but at the time I thought it was so amazing. And so I think I was diagnosed on like a Friday, and I decided I'd have like a weekend with gluten and like eat all the foods that I know I'd never eat again. And that
probably
Monday,
didn't go well.
well, I mean, I was so sick all the time that it didn't make any difference really. And I was at the time they said it was sort of atypical because I wasn't sick every day. Like I was mostly sick, but not every day. Like I had periods of like remission, like symptoms. But anyway, I've never intentionally eaten gluten since that Monday. And there's definitely been several times that I've, been at a restaurant when they come back after delivering my food and say like, you didn't eat that, did you? They had just found out or whatever. And I've seen just so much change in the gluten-free options out there. And, at the time when I went to go see a dietitian as a newly diagnosed celiac, basically she just said, here's a bunch of gluten-free products and, coupons for, gluten-free processed food, and you just can't eat gluten. But I did, so I just went from like toast for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and pasta to dinner to gluten-free versions of that. So my blood sugar, I was definitely in metabolic syndrome for I don't even know how long. And it wasn't until I really pulled out the majority of the carbs and fixed myself. And I don't think everybody needs to be low carb. There's definitely lots of people. My husband is one of them that he can apparently eat pretty much whatever he wants. But, I'm definitely at the complete opposite end of the spectrum where I just need to be super careful about my carb intake. I mean, I still do eat carbs, but I try to get them from whole sources. And I definitely am one of those people that, just needs to be super clean about my diet in order to be healthy.
So was transitioning to more of a whole foods paleo style approach really what helped the most in terms of diet, or did you go beyond that?
Well, it was a really long transition. So, I mean, I was already, by the time I even started learning about like Weston A. Price, I was already like eating lots of lentils and, I was doing lots of sprouted grains, lots of, gluten-free versions. Slowly pulled in fat, which made it so that my second pregnancy, I didn't have gestational diabetes, where my first one I did. So I was low fat my first pregnancy, and then much higher fat for my second pregnancy. And then it wasn't until I went paleo that I really, and it wasn't just paleo. I kind of went keto actually. I read the Paleo Solution book, but I already had this like Weston A. Price background where fat is good. So, and I don't like sweet potatoes. So basically I went keto. Without cool. Like I was just like, okay, I'm just not going to eat sweet potatoes because I don't love them. And, I couldn't really, it was a pretty low carb, diet there. And then, Rob has since, changed his position on fat, but in the Paleo Solution, it's relatively low fat, lots of leaner meats. And so I just added like lots of, fats to that version of that diet. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I can go from breakfast to lunch without a snack. That was like blew my mind.
This is a random question, but did you notice like any differences in your two children? Like one being more of like a low fat, pregnancy to a higher fat pregnancy? I'm always curious in that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's just the genetics, right? But definitely I can say that one of them is a much better student than the other one.
Oh, good to know.
And it is the one that had the more fat, but I can't say that, I love them both equally, of course, as a mother. But yeah, one of them is definitely a straight A honors student and the other one is not.
Do you still lean more towards the keto side of things? Or was that just for like a certain period of time where you're still kind of recovering?
Yeah, I definitely, for the first like couple of years, I was really like pretty anti-carb, and I really have come around now and have a much more moderate view on things and much more, I think, sustainable way. So, I mean, personally for me, I tend to be pretty low carb for breakfast and lunch, and then I'll have like a potato, sweet potato, or some rice or something with dinner. That's just kind of how I have settled into like making this work without having to count things or be neurotic about my food, because for a while, like in the beginning, it was such an effort, right? It was like, oh my God, is this paleo or not? And, you know, and now it's just whatever. I just sort of make it work for me that way. And I found for my clients, that kind of way of looking at food works well. Like just tons of eggs or sausage for breakfast, big salad with some meat for lunch, maybe some avocado. And then dinner is like pork chop, potato, spinach or something.
Yeah. And do you include raw dairy in your diet?
So I have, because the doctors thought I had a lactose intolerance when I was a baby, I don't drink milk only because I don't have a desire to drink milk, because I never have had milk as part of my diet. So to me, I think if you were to make me drink milk, I would totally be so grossed out. But my kids drink milk, and I definitely eat cheese. Not as much as I think I used to, but I do eat some cheese, and I seem to do okay. When my kids were little, we did a lot of raw milk because they were drinking so much milk. In Massachusetts, you can't buy raw milk at the grocery stores, and it's a little bit of a pain to procure it. Like you kind of have to, you know, be a member of one of these underground clubs, and then there's a membership fee, and then there's, you know, you have to go pick it up in a place that's, you know, between 4 and 6 p.m. on every other Friday or whatever. It's just kind of, it's a little bit of a pain. And so I just get, I really like Maple Hill Creamery, full fat, grass fed, organic milk. And so that's at Whole Foods. And so I just, that's what I give to my kids. But definitely when they were younger, I was part of a raw milk club, and I would drive out and I would get the milk, and I knew the farmer well. And I think in many cases, raw milk can be awesome, especially if you know the source. So that's the most important part. I know some people that just will go to any old dairy and just like, oh, it's raw milk. It's you know, and I think you do have to just know that those farmers are testing their milk regularly just to make sure.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't even think about that. My parents used to buy raw milk from, I don't know if it's legal in Texas to like actually buy raw milk, but those kinds of things exist. Is it like, can you do that in states where it's legally illegal to sell raw milk? Do you know what I mean? Like there are some weird laws about that.
Yeah. I think the most important thing about buying raw milk is, like, I know in California, organic pastures is huge. And I actually just talked to the CEO the other day. You know, so that's a different case. They're testing all the time. It's you can go to the grocery store, you can buy raw milk like at the grocery store.
Oh, okay.
In Massachusetts, you cannot. So it just all depends. Maine, you can. So I don't know what the laws are in Texas. I just get nervous when people, again, they go to just any old dairy. I mean, because so many dairies are just sell to a commodity milk pool, a lot of the clean standards have really gone downhill because they didn't need to be that careful, because it would just all get pasteurized. And you know what I mean? Like I think the quality of our milk, once we started pasteurizing it, you know, in some cases went down. And so, you know, there's definitely, I know lots of dairy farmers that I would trust the milk from, but I also know some that I would never let my kids drink that milk. It's like straight from the cow.
Okay, wait, I just have to say something, because so I tried to join one of those underground club things too. I wanted a really high quality meat and dairy, and they made me fill out this really, really long, I had to take a quiz. it was basically all about what's the name price. Mm-hmm. And then they told me that I had to interview.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't doubt it because what they're doing is technically illegal.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So they want to make sure that you're not like some undercover USDA, right? Yeah. Like you're not going to go bust them because a lot of people rely on that food and they don't want to harm the farmer. And my friend Kristen Canty did a really good documentary called Farmageddon, all about the raw milk.
Oh my gosh. It was great.
So she's a great friend of mine. She owns a restaurant near me that we supply a lot of greens to. She has her own farm, and she's been very helpful with me through this filmmaking process that I'm working on now. So she's been a huge inspiration.
That's amazing. Okay, let's talk about this filmmaking process that you are in right now. So I know you grew up on a farm and you moved to the city, and it looks like you came back to the farm after all of this time, and now you're making this documentary called Kale versus Cow. So I just wanted you to explain for all the listeners who don't know what it is, like generally, what is it about?
Mm-hmm. Well, I should say I grew up just in a regular house.
Oh,
but I worked on farms. Yeah, right. Yeah. But my dad had nothing to do with agriculture, his job. So basically what happened was I had started working on a book under the same title, basically trying to defend the red meat consumption from a nutritional, environmental, and ethical perspective. And it was going fine. And what happened was What the Health came out this summer. And just, the paleo community was all fired up about it. I just couldn't believe how poorly done it was on so many, not factual. The style of filmmaking is horrific to me. There's so many reasons why I did not like that film. And so I was like, it's one thing in a book to just tell people that, biodiversity is important, sustainability is something you should care about, red meat is healthy, but more and more people are getting their health information from documentaries and just online. And I think that the story of how cattle can really be so beneficial to the land is a very visual story. And if you're really trying to sway somebody, like most people in the paleo community are already sold, right? And that's not even who I'm trying to talk to because they already buy into this. I'm trying to sway that person that maybe used to be a vegetarian, but they had kids and they're trying to feed their kids meat, but they're feeling conflicted about it. Or they've heard red meat is not so good, and so they're eating chicken and fish instead, which I have to say is a poor choice, both for animal welfare and nutrition reasons and ecological reasons.
How come?
Okay, so nutritionally, red meat is much more nutrient dense than chicken or fish. Salmon has some more omega-3s, but red meat has iron and B12, which are the most common nutrient deficiencies worldwide. And there's no iron or B12 really to speak of in chicken. Right. So all these women who are running anemic should not be thinking that they're doing themselves any favors by not eating red meat and going for chicken. Saturated fat is nothing to be feared any longer. It's been taken off the nutrients of concern list, even by, the USDA dietary guidelines. And, there's a lot of really beneficial fats in red meat that are hard to find in other sources. So that's nutritionally. Environmentally, chicken. So 90% of animal agriculture is broiler chickens. And that is, if you're trying to, the ethics and the environment kind of go hand in hand, but chickens eat 100% grain. That's what they eat in these CAFO situations. And all cows start out on grass. It's just whether or not they end up in a feedlot at the end. That's the difference. But cows are outdoors eating grass. They don't spend their entire lives indoors under fluorescent lights, standing around in their own poop with, toxic ammonia smells. That's reserved for chicken and to a large extent pork. So, cows out on grass can actually benefit the soil and help sequester carbon. And their impact on the land can actually increase water holding capacity to prevent flooding. There's just so many benefits that cows can have on land if they're managed well. And so a lot of people will say, well, but they take up so much land and, chickens are more efficient because you can grow them, on less space. So basically inside a factory. But there's a difference between pasture land and croppable land. They're very different types of agriculture, and you can't just grow crops everywhere. So there's different reasons for that. There's topography reasons. There's water access for irrigation reasons. But I mean, think of most of Northern Africa. You just can't plant soy crops. Like, it just won't work. Right. But what does very well, especially in brittle environments, is grazing animals. And their manure is not waste at all. It's actually fertilizer for the ground. And so they're chomping on the ground, on the grass actually stimulates more root growth. Their manure inoculates the soil with more healthy bacteria. I know, there's a lot of studies, a lot of figures out there talking about how much, water is wasted in like a burger, but those numbers are not taking into account the fact that, first of all, cows pee. So they don't just suck water forever and ever. And also a lot of those numbers are looking at rainfall, total rainfall on all the land as well. And so that's, the rain's going to fall. It's not the cow's fault that the rain is falling, and those numbers shouldn't be calculated into that. Anyway, so environmentally, if you're looking at warehouse chicken that's eaten GMO grain versus a cow out on grass, choose the cow out on grass. And I would even argue typical beef. If you're in a grocery store and it's not grass-fed beef and it's just your choice is typical pork, typical chicken, or typical beef. Typical beef is a better choice nutritionally because of the B12 and iron. And, environmentally, because at least those cows were out on grass to begin with, and got to live a little bit more than 45 days. And then ethically, if you're looking to try to cause least harm and have, the least number of lives die in order for you to live, one cow can produce almost 500 pounds of meat. Versus how many chickens would you need to kill to do that? Versus how many animals die to make that block of tofu when you consider all the pesticides and chemicals and plows and, tractors going through the fields. So I think that, there's a lot of really good cases for why beef should not be vilified, especially grass-fed beef.
I'm curious. So what would you prefer, conventional beef or chickens from a farmer you know and trust?
Oh, well, pasture-raised chickens would be a better choice than that.
Okay.
But you're still losing nutritionally. You still need your B12. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm curious, could you maybe explain to people, so what would happen if we didn't have the cows in terms of the environment?
Well, we need something on pasture land in order to maintain the pastures, or else it'll just turn to desert. Mm-hmm. So whether that's wildebeests and gazelles and giraffes or cattle, there needs to be some kind of, animal impact on the land in order to keep it healthy. So all healthy ecosystems have plants and animals, not just plants.
Okay, and how do you plan on sharing this message in your documentary? What are you going to do to come across to the average American, kind of like you were saying, that's teetering on the edge of like, well, is meat really bad for me, or is it ethically or environmentally wrong? Like, what's kind of going to be the viewpoint of the film?
Yeah. So have you guys seen Rotten?
I haven't.
You seen that series? Oh,
no.
What is it?
Well, we're doing the opposite of Rotten.
Oh, okay.
So it's not going to be this like investigative journalism into the horrors of, blah, 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 with like a million talking heads kind of, spewing statistics at you. It's not like that. We're going to go for a more storytelling approach. So a better example would be Chef's Table. Have you seen Chef's Table?
Yep. Love that show.
Okay.
So good.
So you know how they like focus on one chef and then they bring in just a couple of experts to back them up, but it's really, you're learning the story of that one chef. That's what we're looking to do.
Oh,
so we're going to, so we're going to be celebrating really good people in the nutrition, environmental, and telling the story ethically as well by focusing on basically as few people as we can in order to get the story told.
That's cool.
And we're still debating whether it's going to actually be a feature film or potentially 3 like 40-minute episodes that like all go together like a trilogy. So we're still kind of on the fence about that one, and we're leaving it open because it's a lot of information, and we've got a lot of people that we need to sort of sift through, and a lot of information we're trying to get across in this storytelling way. And so it may make more sense to break it out.
Yeah. And when it comes to like farming animals correctly and having correct like plant farming as well, and that there's this like vegan, saying that if we just eliminated all animal farming, then environmentally this would be better for us. Are you going to like really go into detail on that in the film?
We'll probably go into detail on that in the book and the website. We'll probably touch on that in the film, but we're not going to be rattling off numbers, and it's not going to be like What the Health or Cowspiracy in that way.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
So we find that people don't change their mind with facts. They change their mind with their guts, with their emotion, and so our hope is to show why working with nature, why working with the sun, why increasing biodiversity, increasing the number of lives, of different lives in an area is actually the most beneficial, and not monocrop soy, basically.
How does having plants and animals work together? Like, how is that ethically creating more lives than like the vegan model saying to just not really kill anything? Like, what would your viewpoint on the ethics be?
So Earth is an ecosphere, right? And all life, you can't just have endless life. Death has to happen for life to happen, right? And so the soil needs to be fed. So we can either do that with chemical ag and fossil fuels, or we can do that using, elements from animals. So like manure, which is again a fertilizer, not food waste, not agricultural waste. So it's the way that the food is produced, not the food itself, that makes it ethical or unethical, in my opinion. So, lots of things die in order for a block of tofu to happen, or for, a field of soy to exist, or even on our organic farm, lots of things have died. There's so much life happening and so much death happening at the same time on any sustainable farm. So if you equate, the life of a mouse to the life of a cow, like if all mammals are equal, then, you really have to stop and think about how many animals are dying for your plant-based diet, because there's a lot of death that has to happen for that. So it's just whether or not you want to accept it.
Thank you for clarifying that for our audience. I think that's a big misconception that's running around. Another thing I want to ask you about is, so I think I'm seeing this in the health space a lot, especially with young women my age. They have maybe they understand the sustainability aspect and they're not afraid of eating well-sourced meat, but there's still this idea a lot of people have that they still shouldn't be having it more than 3 times a week. They're still saying, oh no, it's a really healthful food, but we still shouldn't be having red meat. A lot of people say that it hurts their digestion, or they just, otherwise I don't really see, that's kind of the only concrete reason I have when people say that to me. What would you say to people who are worried about still limiting it, even when they're like, believe that it's a healthful food and not worried about the source, like they know it's from a good source?
Look, you can get your protein in lots of different ways. So if you're trying to get it from peanut butter, in order to get 30 grams of protein, that's 700 calories worth of peanut butter, or that's 210 calories worth 210 calories worth of beef.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's fine if people think, if it's, there's, well, I'm trying to think of the best way to answer this. I don't know why you would want to limit a nutrient-dense food like that. There's no reason at all. So saturated fat and dietary cholesterol are not what is killing people. What's killing people is hyperpalatable processed foods. So if we're telling anyone to limit or eliminate certain foods from their diet, it should be boxed food and not. Yeah. It's not the burger, it's the bun, it's the large fries, it's the 72-ounce Coke, and it's the deep fried apple pie. That's what's killing people, not the burger.
Yeah. One thing I also think is interesting, Kara and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, is people seem to be really focused on meat and like demonizing meat, but these same people are eating their farmed fish and they're not worried about the sustainability of their fish.
Or their chicken.
Yeah.
And I have to say too, fish and chicken both don't have regulations on how they're slaughtered. So they can be slaughtered pretty much anyway. So fish are generally suffocated, and chicken are generally dipped in an electric shock bath to stun them first, and it doesn't always work. So, there are laws around large animals and proper ways to render them senseless before they're killed so that they don't know. And those rules don't happen with chicken and fish. I think that, chicken and fish generally isn't on a bone. It's white, so it doesn't look bloody or dirty. And, it's in a manageable portion, right? They're usually like nice, about the size of your palm or a little bit more. And they've just been sort of touted as clean when there's nothing clean at all about, unsustainable fishing and CAFO chicken.
Yeah. In terms of people going to shop for sources of protein, what are your recommendations for what they're looking for and figuring out, what they should be buying?
Well, for animal products in general, if they're looking for eggs, I would go for pasture-raised eggs if you can. So Vital Farms is a pretty big brand that you can find in most Whole Foods markets, or find your local farmer, of course. Eatwild.com is a great resource to connect with a farmer to find eggs or other animal products. For dairy products, I would highly recommend full fat, not low fat. And, preferably 100% organic grass fed. So that pretty much leaves us with Maple Hill Creamery as the only dairy company, or one of the only dairy companies that I like. I don't know a whole lot of other ones that have, countrywide representation that are 100% grass fed as well as full fat. And also their yogurts don't have tons and tons of sugar in them, like a lot of the other yogurts out there. And then as far as proteins, seafood can be really tricky because, it depends on where you are. I would go for frozen. There's certainly less waste in frozen seafood than in fresh seafood because it's just so highly perishable. And so the more fresh seafood we demand, the more waste we're going to have with fresh seafood. And then, there's things like trash fish. So, that's whatever the guys catch. So at our farm, we run a fish share. So people, pay up front and they get whatever the fisherman catches that week. And so they're, not, saying I only will eat salmon or whatever. And then for beef, grass-fed is better for the environment and ethics. Pasture-raised chicken is optimal, and pasture-raised pork is optimal. So these are all, I recommend people try to work those into their diet as much as they can.
So I heard that, there's not a lot of regulation around the grass-fed label, is there?
So 100% grass-fed can't be anything than 100% grass-fed.
That's what I thought, but then people are
But lots of things can be called grass-fed.
Yes, they're buying grass-fed.
Yeah, so you need to see 100% grass-fed or grass-fed and grass-finished, because all cows are grass-fed. They all do eat grass.
Oh, okay. But like if it doesn't say 100%, that means that they could be being fed like
You're just not sure.
or something
So
else.
then,
you just never know.
Yeah, and it's, it's not, I'm not the 100% grass-fed isn't a deal breaker for me. If I know the farmer and they're, growing their own grains, or they're getting the grains locally and they're just doing a little bit at the end, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's certainly better than feedlot beef coming from some gigantic, I think it's everything in context. And I think that's the hard thing, is people have a hard time wrapping their head around nuance and context, and they just want yeses and nos. Like,
that totally makes sense.
And it's more complicated than that. So there's better and worse ways to do lots of things. There's not only one right way and one wrong way.
Yeah, I'm curious. I've heard a lot of people say the opinion, they'll say they would rather have a vegan meal than a meal with animal protein that's not from a quality source. Do you feel the same in terms of nutrition?
No, absolutely not. No.
You would still prioritize like the nutrition in meat, even if it wasn't like quality sourced, over just eating all plants.
There's a lot. Yeah. I mean, there's some people can appear to be okay on a vegan diet, but a lot of people can't. So for example, when you look at sweet potatoes or any plant source of vitamin A, it's not actually vitamin A, it's beta carotene. Mm-hmm. And only 50% of the population can make the conversion from beta carotene to vitamin A. So there you go, 50% of the population can't be vegan right there.
That's a big percent.
Mic drop.
So, and then when you work in grain intolerance and, just the amount of calories that you need to consume to get the protein requirement. And I know that a lot of the vegan films say we don't, hardly need any protein. I actually wrote a really great post called More Protein, Better Protein, where I break down the RDA for protein and why we need to be eating more protein. So if someone's looking to lose weight or balance their blood sugar, what you need to do is increase protein from animal sources.
We've been talking a lot about protein on this podcast. So I love that blog post that you wrote, by the way, Karen. I love that post. But so what do you think is a good amount of protein for people to be aiming for?
Well, it's all individual. So, but if someone comes to my practice and they want to lose weight, or balance their blood sugar and kind of, get over that like blood sugar roller coaster from kind of a higher carb diet, I start them at 100 grams of protein per day.
Okay.
And that's not 100 grams of meat. That's 100 grams of protein.
Yeah.
So that's about 4 to 6 ounces of animal protein per meal.
And it's
which
funny
is not
I
excessive.
know, it's not at all, but for some reason that is like deemed as high now.
Yeah.
I feel like with especially the ketogenic type craze that's going on, nothing against like keto, but now they're advocating moderate protein and saying that lower protein actually is best and it's best for longevity and all this stuff. And so what used to be a normal amount of protein, I feel like the 100 grams now is becoming high, which is crazy.
Yeah. The RDA for protein gets interpreted as way too low. So they're basing that, I think it's 45 grams for women. I think that's what it works out to. I'm going to pull up my post here. Hold on a second.
45 grams is pretty low. That's
yeah, it's definitely around that. I know it's like 45 to 50, I think.
Yeah, here it is. It's 46 grams for women and 56 for men is the numbers that are sort of out there. But that's based on 0.8 grams per kilogram for a woman of 125 pounds and a man of like 154 pounds. So that's not like average. The average woman is about 165 pounds and the average man's about 195 pounds.
Also, isn't that just like the minimum requirement to
it's
function?
The minimum.
That's not optimal. It's like there's a difference between like the minimum to function versus what you feel like what people would feel best on.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's what is also being done with like carbohydrates right now. I feel like we just swing to like every end of the spectrum with carbs as well. It's like, okay, well, technically you could live with no carbs. And so now everyone's doing this zero carb type thing. But optimally, like most people feel better with a little bit of carbohydrate, even if you do have some metabolic issues and you do need to reduce carbs, like you're still going to be eating vegetables and stuff, but we just have taken it to crazy extremes and spectrums with every macro, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's been so great talking to you. And I want to make sure that people know how they can support the creation of this film if they want to help get behind this. So can you share where people can go to support it?
Yeah, and folks can see a little video of me talking, like in my farmhouse and on our farm.
It's a cute video. I watched it last night.
Thanks. Yeah, a lot of people love the dogs jumping over the fences. That's like everyone's favorite. So it's sustainabledish.com/film is where I'm going to be sharing, when we do updates and things like that. And that's where people can see the little video and learn more about the project. And then I post stuff on Instagram and talk on my podcast and all that kind of stuff. They can find that all through my website, Sustainable Dish.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we've had just an awesome time chatting with you. And people, I wanted to clear up, they can contribute to your film, right? Through that link?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
They can if they want. We have some perks and everything. Or if they just want to learn about it and share it with other people, they can do that too. It's very helpful.
Sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw those really cool perks that you have going on your site. I was looking through it, and you can get like a Thrive Market membership for like 5 years or something like that, or get private screenings. So there are some cool perks, and if you are really into sustainability and learning more about like where good quality meat can come from and her film, definitely check that out and contribute and just listen to her show, go read her blog. She has some really interesting content. So we're really happy that we got to have you on the show today. And I guess we will chat with you later, but thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.